Hey, friends, I'm just doing this as a test run because the the Wi-Fi here is so slow that I did a 12-minute video yesterday, which I started uploading at 1 or sometime in the afternoon or midday. I think in total it took about 7 hours to load a 12-minute video. So I thought there's going to be little chance I can do a live stream from here. When I say here, I mean this place. And I'm in the saddle room. So a couple of things, really. I'm going to wear these so that if someone can't... Hey, Tam, Australia. How are you doing, mate? It's been a long time. I think time you had a wrench. Saddle up. Yeah. I can see myself quite a lot clearer in wearing these. And it's easier to read the comments, I have to say. It's hard work. Hey, Mark. Nice to see you, mate. I just commented on your really helpful comment on the video I uploaded yesterday. Thanks for that. And your kind of insightful, understanding of the biblical, the scriptures, I suppose is probably the right way to put it, is powerful and useful. And along this way, I have wrestled with the biblical element of all of this. Some people would have heard me say this before, so apologies for that. But I've always wanted to do the right thing. Always wanted to do. I haven't always done the right thing, but in essence, I've always wanted to do the right thing and be a good person. But I couldn't trust in the Bible, and I couldn't trust in religion, because as a child, I could see all the inconsistencies with word and deed. So for me, there was this, it doesn't quite fit. And then of course I go to war and kill people, and I'm like, so this is what we do. This is God in action. And that was why I was able to kind of reach atheism, a pretty high level of there's no God, and I refuse to accept that. That was my belief. And then, of course, Flat Earth, the DMT experience, not in that order, the DMT experience and Flat Earth. And I'm like, okay, so the Bible was always right about, it being a flat Earth. I'm sure people have heard me say that many times, but it's so obvious to me that as a child, I could clearly read that they were talking the flat Earth up, and nothing to do with evolution, Big Bang, none of that stuff. And anyone who's into the religious thing and still won't hear that, then they're no better than a guy who wants to believe in curving water but refuses to measure it. Oh, I can see it, but I don't have to measure it. That's not where the scientific method doesn't apply over distance. Same with the sun, we don't have to measure it. We'll absolutely be sure that it's 93 million miles away, and we'll be absolutely sure that the distance, because if it's 93 million miles to the sun, then the distance that the Earth has to travel around, and every other body, including all the planets, so-called planets behind us, further out than us, have to travel that much faster in order to make their annual cycle, or sometimes it's more than a year cycle, isn't it? But that in order to do that, and some of the comments, I've stayed out of. I know I've gone off from the Bible thing. I need to get back to that. But my comments this morning are much more aligned to how they were 4 years ago, because I was willing to kind of dip into the arguments with people's belief system in heliocentrism. And so I would wake up to arguments, people saying, being, you this, and then it's hard not to get, drawn into that kind of negative energy. Andrea actually went to bed, a bit pissed off at me because, I'd set this up, by inviting Dan, the Psy Man, to a discussion, and that's not ended up, it's barely even scratched the surface because I, haven't heard from Dan, and I've heard from a few Dan followers or ball believers or dudes who can't see the wood for the trees, whatever you want to call them. Some of them would be Christians even, I think. I think there are Christian ballers out there arguing the toss that their ball is somehow God derived, when it's so random and chaotic. Anyway, I'm just a little unaccustomed to it, and I've never really been that kind of I want to wake up every morning and have an argument. I'm not Nathan Oakley, that how that guy manages to do that, I don't know. But for me, that kind of like it's an energy that I carry inside of my chest, and I don't really want to do that. Primarily because this is what the system wants, is it wants us to argue and squabble. Mark, I've got to get back to talking about the Bible. I will. But the system wants us to squabble, and it doesn't matter if we're squabbling over our race, our religion, our whatever, our part of the country we come from, our football team. It doesn't matter. Politics, that's a fantastic one. They've really turned up the heat on politics and how people are. So I think today is Brexit Day, apparently. I've not at all been affected. People around me have been affected, and maybe that's affected me in some ways, but apparently today's the day that Brexit happens, and when that goes down, apparently some people are going to have to. People have been applying for licenses and passes, and please can I stay here? Please may I continue to do that? You see how Brexit has a clever element to it in which it kind of takes you from, well, I'm apathetic about government, to, wow, we need to have registered this. We need to have, it's important that we do this thing. So we're all just becoming more and more softly beaten into, just going, saying, oh, well, you have to. I've heard people who will be like, oh, you're quite, you're quite what would be considered to be, anti-establishment, and yet you're just, accepting that you have to get these additional forms and papers and so on. I'm sympathetic to it because I feel, myself, it's like this, just going without certain licenses or passes, it's going to create a whole lot more problems. So we've given Brexit actually just continues to offer more means of governmental or central control. I don't know where it ends, and I'm not making any predictions, but it appears that Brexit is now happening or happened, and after years of painful kind of wrangling. Andrea and I, well, she particularly and others would say that it's all lined up. It's all these events are lined up to happen with the stars, with the celestial energetic portals and doors and moments and so on that come and go in a cyclical way. I think these are exploited. These are often exploited, and our energy is drawn into consternation or focus on a different thing, focus outwardly on a system that we more and more kind of consider to be an essential part of all of our lives. But if you go back 100 years before the two wars, well, okay, the First World War would have started by now, but or finished by now. but before that, to go back 110, 120 years, people government had a tiny part in people's lives. Tiny part. There's very little that the government had to do with your life. Licenses, you just kind of got on and did your own shit on your land. I mean, this property that I'm staying in at the moment is a grade 2 listed building, and 120 years ago, the owners could have done whatever they like. Now they can't even change a window without permission. I mean, that's interesting as well. That building, how they can struggle year after year to kind of just keep this thing maintained, but people just threw these things up in a few years back, 250 years ago, just threw these up in a few years. They didn't keep any records of them, and the floor levels are all over the place. It's symmetrically from the outside, it's perfect, and so on. But inside, the floor levels are all cock-a-hoop. You get barred from access to this area. You have to make a long, journey around there to get to that. It makes no sense why they would have done that. A convoluted series of drainage pipes, underground drainage pipe system exists for this property, because all the rainwater that collects is falling down into troughs that are like windows that are dug into the ground. And then below those windows has to be a drainage system. Very complicated, simply to have. Anyway, I won't go into the detail on this. That's not the point of my conversation. And I'm enjoying having the opportunity that this has not gone down. So welcome if you've just joined this chat. Hi, Gracie. Yeah, so I wanted to get back to what Mark was saying. Hi, Martin, and William. Good morning. It's nice to be able to see you. Lucas, hey, how you going? Greetings. Nice to see you. Yeah, so I was saying about how important I think that the Bible is. And actually, this is where I think it's a sensitive subject, is that it's like, how does the Bible sit with the Quran and maybe older books? And when we get into, it's all in the Bible, that's pretty much all you need, then we kind of we fall into, for me anyway, we fall into a kind of trap of exclusivism. Like, there's only one book you ever need. If you want to develop your creativity and develop your ability, then do you read one book on art, or do you get from a whole raft of different authors on the subject, and then ultimately rely on your own God-given talent to achieve something that's unique to you? That's what I think the Creator would want, not a slavish attachment to one. However, these books, and particularly what you bring, Mark, from the biblical story, is invaluable. And I say that to people that I talk to in real life, when I get the opportunity this deep into the conversation, I go, the story of Christ is the story of you, and you essentially have this kind of like a playbook by which to understand the wider world and some of the stuff that's going on in the wider world more, and understand primarily yourself and what's going on in you. And this place that I'm at, the people are quite religious, actually. The place we're staying at, and it's interesting because I've only just getting to sort of have a few conversations with people. I don't want to overload them. I don't want to overload them, so I obviously haven't, started picking holes in their belief systems about spinning water rocks. There are grown-up men and women still, years now, after this has become a noisy thing, still not honest enough with themselves to be able to look at this. And someone said in the comment section, wheat and tares. And for those who don't know the reference, that's biblical. I suppose it's in the others too, but that there's a kind of like a day of judgment when God decides that both, I mean, that when the, the wheat is separated from the tares, and the tares are those that are, not, is it not of God's children, not God's children, or not? And I just kind of, I'm still in that. Geez, are we created? Is that still not another them and us thing? Wheat and tares. That's them and us. They live. Someone I heard it in a little bit listened to last night before I fell asleep was someone saying like there was a DNA change, and there are some people here that are slightly different. Oh God, there's only one creation. You see, this is my touchstone. There's one creation, or maybe there's billions of creations in that each of us has our own creation, but there's only one creator of that, I think there's only one creator, and therefore everything light and dark comes from that one creator. So, let's see. You guys are just chatting amongst yourselves. Damn, Australia, to be honest, I've had better days. Hey, Mario, you know what? I hope it's going well for you, or better for you, Tam. Just so you know, I mean, it's been really humbling, actually, friends, to be so kind of out in the cold. Out in the cold, like, the system is, we've rejected the system and the system has rejected us. We don't take, and I hope not for this to change, because we had pressure for this to change, but we don't take any money from the state, and we have resisted going to the council and saying, please give us housing. We have resisted that. We survived January thanks to the kindness of 20 different people who sent us contributions to help us pay for accommodation and food and some travel expenses, I suppose, but really just accommodation and food. That's all we spend our money on, pretty much. In fact, I've started working here using the very same boots that I went on tour around Europe with, which are the only shoes I have now. Not all bad news. I have Wellington boots, which I will wear if I'm working in the garden. But we've been brought to a point of simplification. A very hard. I'm not sitting in my basement tapping away at the keyboard, ordering Uber Eats or takeouts from whatever. That's not how I'm doing this. I'm actually living this. And honestly, I mean, I kind of had to be forced to this. I had to exhaust every avenue financially of trying to stay in the house that we lived in for 10 years. So it wasn't like I just willingly sold most of my possessions and put everything else into a small storage locker, and put ourselves on the road to a series of... No, it wasn't that. Yes, I made the choice 4 years ago, or maybe a little more, but about 4 years ago, to go, wow, of course, 9/11. Now I see 9/11 was an inside job. Of course, the politics. Maybe I was still in the kind of the softer position of saying something like, and it wasn't a thing back then, but to say back in 2016, if Q had come along back then, I might have still run down that rabbit hole for a little while. I still had a belief, a faith that the system was going to offer a savior and a changer of the status quo. I might have still felt that then. But now I realize that the only one who's going to make the change is you or me. The system is going to continue bamboozling people, continue offering a never-ending series of hobgoblins to frighten, to cower, but in such clever ways as to get people to basically continue to put their energy into the very trappings that hold them back, that hold them in this. And maybe this is what the tears are, who the tears are and who the tears become, but I don't know about that. What I do know is that I've been forced down a road, and it's almost like it's destiny. It's starting to feel a little bit like that it's meant to be, that we take this journey. You don't have to. I'm not going to try and paint it out rosy. It doesn't have to be the same way for everybody, I'm sure. I'm sure there has to be easier ways, and I guess sometimes if you've done more preparation and you've got a means or a life raft at your disposal, then good luck to you. But oftentimes that in itself can be a trapping, because you're still kind of constrained by that. But I don't know, and I don't even want to kind of make suggestions about your life. Truth is, my life is it's a million miles from 93 million miles. You have to take my word for it. 93 million miles away from where it was when I believed we were racing around the sun in an elliptical orbit. 93 million miles away. I think it's sometimes less, sometimes more. Same with the moon, how the moon can kind of whip in and out, and all of a sudden you got supermoon. Oh, the moon has just dropped in by 20% closer, which is just 40,000 miles. Don't ask how. It kind of does this little wobble every now and again. It's caused by the gravy train on the underside of the ball. What gravy train? Well, it's obvious. Neil deGrasse Tyson said there's a gravy train, so there is one. Okay. All right. Well, anyway, I mean, I'm a long way from my life, and my life was just mainstream. but I made choices, and I said to Andrea by 2016, I said, there's something going to change. It's going to be big. And I seriously was, doing things, upskilling myself, preparing myself. But it has been important to do that preparation, and despite that, still incredibly hard. Incredibly hard. Particularly because it's Alexander. And Andrea too. She, bless her, has, she was at least 2 years behind me in terms of starting to go, oops, I'm being entertained. I need to switch that off and start to think for myself. And she's come so far. But it's been hard. And right now I feel I can talk about it because the pressure is off my neck. I've got a accommodation for a while. Not more than a month, but a while. For me, this is the most stability we've had for 4 months. I mean, obviously, even before we sort of lost up or gave up the house, it had been a pretty unstable time, and we knew the final rent payment, where the final moment was going to come where we were like, okay, this is it. Every barrel has been scraped, and we've got to go. And as you might know, if you've been around for a while, we managed to last until Luke went off to uni, and then we were out 1 week later. But it had to be that way. It had to be that way. Drew. Others, that guy was a TAM. But, it has to be this way of getting to that point where it no longer matters. It no longer, on the DMT, this uncomfortable truth that came to me over and over is that nothing matters here. Whilst I still think that was a truism that I learned, I think that nothing matters, but everything matters. And that, we should make this our story, not his story, and the only way we do that is by stripping everything right back. And for me, these few months of really, really challenging experiences, really desperate sense of falling off the edge of a cliff. Really is. It is part of the kind of strengthening process that I've had to go through. And maybe the humbling process that I've had to go through to get to a point where I don't want to fight with, you know what I mean? Like, I don't need to prove anything, this little like flea bite rash of names that all of a sudden popped into my life. I think Woodhead came in as well, and he's like an old troll from when I first started the Trinity channel, this channel. So it might be because I remember making jokes about having a Woodhead, and this little rash of those that claim they can see something or whatever, you know what I'm talking about. People who either support Simon and Dan or simply, as we all did, support the idea that we can walk underneath a rock on our feet with rain falling upside down. These are little people sitting on their little keyboards going, and they can be massive heroes on the thing. And you meet some of these people and you go, oh my God, what a little, tiny little man being given so much power, like the dude behind the curtain in the Dorothy Yellow Brick Road Wizard of Oz story. And you come behind the curtain and there's this greasy, pimply, pale little creature, like Gollum. Yes, here's a globe, you retard. Yeah, I can't even, whatever. And this is what it is. I mean, obviously, I know that some of the people who will defend the ball are physically not going to look like that. I've met some in the streets. I met this mountain in Salisbury the other day. This guy was huge. If you saw the live stream, it was anywhere near a good live stream from my perspective, but nonetheless, this guy, I spoke to him a few times actually afterwards. We made friends. Oh, yeah, I'm just doing a live stream. Anyway, so yeah, I'm sure some of them aren't physically like that, but metaphorically, that's really what it is. Because when you honestly get out and do the measurements, you won't find curvature. That's just a fact of life. All you will find is explanations and excuses and theories and excuses, ideas and hypotheses about why there is the visibility that there is or isn't. I've come up with a great one for light and light traveling, because I was been doing a bit of driving around country, and I was doing some driving in the mist the other day, and I realized how close one had to be in the mist in order to see somebody's headlights. And that's really just an exaggerated example of how light works in our atmosphere. It only travels a finite distance, and it has to get a certain distance close to us in order for us to be able to see it. And the reflected light of anything has exactly the same kind of constraints. But it's one where you can quite obviously show how, light, obviously the brighter the light, the further the travel, but we have no example other than the sun. And that on its own, we can see how a cloud can blot out the sun. You can see the disk of the sun perfectly through the cloud, but the actual light of it is now reduced. And then if the cloud gets any thicker, push, it's gone, and you can't even tell where the sun is. So, in our experience, light is only traveling a certain distance. That's reality, because of atmospheric occlusion. End of story. And obviously, yeah, I mean, I think that the wave form itself only has a certain travel. And again, we can't see examples of the sun for more than maybe a few hundred miles away. That's about it on a clear day. Anyway, that's off the beaten track a little bit. Sorry about that, guys. Oh, hey, Drew. Yeah, this is just nice for you to join, mate. And I hope that things are going well for you too, my friend. Because Russian Viz just did a video. It just popped up in my thing. Actually, this is part of the reason for me wanting to do this test. This was meant to be just a quick test of my Wi-Fi to see that I was able to do a stream, because Russian Vids asked me to do a stream with him. So I'd really like to line that up. He was listening to some of my stuff the other day and made a comment about that, and I don't know how to email him to kind of set that up. So if anybody knows his email, send it to me at trinityforman@gmail.com. I'm conscious of the time, and I have to go and do work in a little while. I am working here in exchange for the accommodation. So yeah, I mean, that was like what I was talking about earlier on. It was kind of like, you may have missed this, Drew, but I was kind of like giving a bit of a heartfelt expression of this journey that we've been on. Andrea's here now. The journey we've been on over this last few years, and particularly over this last few months, to get to this point now, where we are at now. And aside from the physical location and the place and the nature of our sort of situation or predicament, is the soul learning. You know, like if you were going to run a marathon, you would definitely do some 5-mile and 10-mile training runs, and as the marathon got closer, you would seek to do something closer to a marathon, 3/4 of a marathon or a half a marathon at least, as part of your training. And I think that if we are, and this is not just for us, but if we are to, we know that this is true. We know that the entirety of our reality has been shaped in deceptive ways to constrain us. So, and we could debate about what constraints and the soul elements of that constraint. But for us, having kind of given this so much time and thought and opened our hearts to these possibilities, then we realize that we are meant to throw off the shackles. We are meant to walk the path less traveled, the road less favored, in order to kind of pass the tests, to do the half marathon, to be comfortable in that.
Everybody can do a half marathon. I think this is part of the problem that's going on, is we're all expecting everybody to be at the same place we are.
Well, Andrea's right. She's like, we don't all have the ability to run the half marathon, and we don't. So I'm not saying that that's like what we have to do.
People ready to run the half marathon. I think this is the thing. The souls are at a different place in their journey. They're having to learn different lessons. Good morning. I've got morning face, but I think I'm saying this off the back of reading some of the comments on some of Dave's videos, the ones that are less kind, and that's vice versa, because we can judge others too. So in that we need to be less concerned, less judgmental of how other people are choosing, because it is accountability of your own soul. And we're going to be less judgmental about where people are. We're supposed to be loving, and the loving light to others. Doesn't mean you take people's crap, not at all. You have to put boundaries up.
So well, that's what Andrew's saying is kind of what I should finish off on. Is
I'm just going to go and check in the
we can't leave Alexander alone for too long. The bedrooms are a little way away from this lounge we're in. So she's gone back to be with him. But yeah, I mean, I've had to kind of get to that point where I've run this half marathon, or I've practiced enough that I feel comfortable enough in my skin that on race day, when I go down to run my half marathon, my full marathon, I'm not looking around at the other runners and going, "Oh, what are you going to do? Or what are you going to do? You know, and that doesn't, trouble me so much or at all now that I've done this preemptive practice. And I'm just going to come here and run my race and do it the best that I can in the most honorable way that I can. And it isn't predicated on what you believe, and I think this is where I feel like we need to kind of be getting to is that, and comes back to Malcolm Eldon and some of the kind of, great stuff he brings out of the Bible is that, we shouldn't be looking at the chip on the other dude's shoulder, because we got the log on our own. And so, and this is what model squabbling is all about, is like my model is better than yours. And so in my invitation to Simandan, I was saying, and this is what his squawking followers seem, again, too deaf to hear, but that I'm saying,
you see that I think you're wrong. I think you're wrong. I think it's not about them being too deaf to hear. I think that they have their own soul, ego issues to confront, and it's on them to do that in their time. And it's whether you decide you want to put your energy into having that debate with them. So I think this is again where the judgment comes, and I'm seeing it with comments from Globers and Flat Earthers. So it's not just the people who are too deaf to hear. Do you want to sit there and argue with people who don't see it or hear it? Now, whether that's because they are resisting seeing or hearing, or whether they just can't, that's up to them. But it's where certainly from how I feel, I'm at the point now where I want to be compassionate and go, okay, well, I can see you can't see it. This is what I know. And if you choose to not see it, then that's fine. But I need to
I guess
I
think Andrew's on the money there, and so that's why I think sometimes this is such a left brain movement, the Globey Flat Earth conversation, but to have that kind of feminine kind of different angle on it, I think is beneficial. It kind of reins me in a little bit, because I am obviously more, male driven in my responses and so on. But I think we are on the cusp of wanting to be that, where we're more understanding of people's different
compassionate. I think it's really hard for people to think like this, but we have to be forgiving, we have to be compassionate, we have to have unconditional love for our fellow human beings.
Yeah.
And that's even those that don't
the blind.
see.
Yeah.
Well, let's not call them blind.
Yeah,
because that's a derogatory
too.
thing.
Yeah.
And this is the gameplay that goes on between each other, and and I don't think it's I don't think it's useful, and I don't think it's certainly not where I'm at anymore. I wish others would see it the way we do, but in their own time is what I say. In their own time, I think. The unfortunate thing is you've got a bunch of egos that are wanting to argue with each other now, and you have to question whether that has any value. Does it have any value other than to satisfy some sort of egoic, or maybe possibly some sort of karmic soul debt? But
that's interesting.
For me, I don't know whether it has enough value, or whether it's just something that, quite frankly, the system would quite happily have people just sit there and argue with each other over different views.
Actually.
And I think we need to get to the point where we're able to be compassionate and forgiving and loving, and again, that doesn't mean you take people's crap. It upsets me, the comments where people are calling each other names and stuff. For me, I don't. That's not where I'm at anymore. Again, like I said, I think you have to put boundaries up when people are doing that, because everybody's at different places in their journey.
Yeah,
their souls are experiencing different things.
Yeah, but I feel like, if I can say it, because people are, oh, well, why you even, why you think you should be talking to Simon? I mean, it's this is how childish it gets. It's like, oh, he's got 100,000 subscribers, and I've only got 1,500 subscribers. So, why am I even talking to him? I mean, this is how childish it is that grown men value these subscriber counts, which means that, like, Brittany Houston or whatever her name is, Britney Spears, Whitney Houston.
It's a long time since you said that name.
Yeah, they've got lots of subscribers, so maybe we should be talking to them about the nature of the world. But like I said earlier on, we're actually out there in the world, walking this experience, not sitting behind a keyboard garnering, subscribers for peddling things that that are not not even real. So it's all science fiction.
Well, again, you need to let them be. If we need to carry on with those that do see what we see,
sorry, that was where I lost my thread. That was where I wanted to go with this. Is that I want to say that that's actually what I think that this is me kind of going, you know what, I've walked in the streets, I've talked to people who've told me, I mean, Andrea's heard people call me really kind of unkind names in the streets as they've walked past. I have, fronted up to, some street people, educated people, people from the industries, the various space industries and so on. I have spoken to young people, old people alike, officials and street cleaners. I have spoken to a lot of the human spectrum, actually. And of course, the people that have the most vitriol are these cowboys on the keyboard. So I feel like, as part of my moving on, because I do need to move on. Andrea's right, I knew this in 2016. I didn't want to be part of the kind of the debate circle that was building around Nathan Oakley and others, where it was just like, we're going to just continue battering people who can't see this stuff. And I don't want to be that. And I think that if you're on this journey like me, where you're wanting to move on from
There's something bigger going on, and
we have to. Well, then we have to leave all of that squabbling behind.
When you said you wanted to go and debate him, I understood that you wanted to be able to have a honourable conversation with someone who has some understanding of the globe.
And of course his reach is kind of
and so you wanted to,
because you're wanting to affect, at the end of the day, this is truth, and you want that truth out to the widest possible audience. And so you can't fault me for wanting to reach the highest. I know that people who watch these debates will favor the side that they vote for already. Was it Owen Benjamin was watching a Richard Dawkins debate with a blonde lady, creationist. And I originally watched that video while I was an atheist, and that debate, 5 or 6 years ago. And I totally thought that Richard Dawkins had won it. Which, funny enough, I was talking to my pal Luke the other day, he over in Canterbury, and he he'd watched the same documentary as an atheist or as a non-believer, and he thought, yeah, Dawkins is one or two, you know. So you know, it does, the way that you are, you know, the way that you are biased is going to continue to affect the way that you, I think, see that. But I feel that amongst the thousands of people that hang on Simon Dan's every word, you know, to have some of them hear that his every word is mostly obfuscation and straw mannery, then they would perhaps be willing to reconsider what they think they know about the model that we all believed we lived on. And it is a model, and for me, the models are like the problem. And then what the psyop of flat Earth is that we have been given a model, and it's like, go and defend this model. Here it is, snow globe. Here it is. It's a frisbee with an ice ring and a 3,000 mile away sun. There's your model. Go and defend it. Well, I've come to have to realize along this way that I don't need to defend the model.
And neither do they. Neither do they. They'll have the same discussion. This is the thing. I think.
Well, no, you didn't let me finish. What I put in my video was that I think that there is the reality. I think there's things about our reality we can test. There's things about beyond our reality that we can speculate about. And maybe how things work in our reality, we continue to speculate about. But water is a fundamental part of our reality, and water dynamics, fluid dynamics, and the way that the dynamics of gases work and the way that they layer in strata and so on, is a matter of scientific fact. It is the way that the world works. And it is a fact that we could not have a pressurized environment like we live in without it being somehow constrained or contained. The water and the gases alike. So how that works is great for kind of, you know, around the campfire conversation, but we can't know that, and we're not supposed to perhaps know that. I think that the Bible will say that we want to behave like gods and be like gods, and only, you know, this idea that you can leave your egg. If we're in some kind of cosmic egg, then if you can leave your egg, then you are trying to behave like God, when there's, in fact, we're meant to be in here percolating inside of this egg and having this awesome experience inside of this egg, or this growing experience inside of this egg. And then, you know, at the time of our leaving, you know, some people would say that that's certain dates or certain, you know, ascensions or whatever, but at the time of our leaving, then we will, you know, see the fruit of that, you know, be the wheat perhaps, and not end up as a tare. And as I said to this dude yesterday, you know, I'm not fearful. I don't behave out of fear. I behave. I seek to become be more like the seven virtues, the heavenly virtues, than the seven deadly sins, which I was very much caught up with. You know, in my, you know, pre kind of beginning to wake up. So there you go. That's
to give Dave credit. I think what he's trying to do is reach out and you know, create a bridge between
create some energy
between others, and you know, I'll give him his due, but when you then see those that are wanting to come and have, I'll say, conversations, that to me that doesn't seem like their intention, and it just makes me feel like we're, you know, the situation is more one of like division, you know, two divisions, a bit like two, I don't want to call it religions because I don't believe it is, but you know, just the division between countries or football teams or whatever, coming to kind of just sling.
Yeah, but I think
sling facts.
Yeah,
at each
but
other.
I think
and I understand that you wanted to have an honourable man-to-man
I still do.
conversation
I still do. I'm
in-
hoping
in
that's
an
Simon Dan
energetic-
responds to my
in an
invitation.
energetic way, and I hope that it is that.
Because I would meet any man face to face and have a conversation with him. This idea that it's all like, oh, we want to go and we're going to, be thugs with each other is actually, this is this is the trap people fall into online, because actually in person, most people are decent with each other, and I think the example that you give reminds me of sort of the football hooligan situation, where you only need a handful of football hooligans to give the news the opportunity to say that the entirety of that football fan base are hooligans. Now, because a handful, if that, of ballers drop into my net here and they start scratching around for a few days before I block them or whatever, I think that's only that is the representative of those that have all this keyboard time to go, like, because when I first discovered that the earth might be flat, came across videos of it, the only videos I saw, maybe first one, the second one was like debunk videos, and this is early 2015, mid 2015, and I realized then that there were so many deceptions that even though I couldn't get into the flat earth at the first look, I wasn't willing to go and call the guys out as idiots, because I had seen that there were so many deceptions that I wasn't willing to kind of say to these guys that you were nuts for thinking this, because the scope of possibility for me had got to where I was thinking, it was possible that Neil Armstrong was right and there were aliens on the moon when they were there. I was thinking that. And I suspect a lot of ballers even go that far as to think, yes, there are aliens, and what I mean by aliens in this case is, beings from other planets, from distant stars and things like that, and that they've been watching it, in that way, which, I'm not obviously, that I thought I was thinking that was possible, and now I realize that was all, disinfo. But I'm not willing to kind of call out the flat earthers. However, there are obviously those that will make a career out of trying to do that, and I don't want to stay in. I never wanted to stay in that pool, because I know that it's like a never-ending. As each day you dig a new bunch of people this information, and from them will emerge 10 keyboard heroes who will just go around hating on anyone who thinks that their model, which has never been shown to work, their model is flawed. They don't want to hear that. And so is what the PSYOP has been, is to create this secondary model that people can then fly it at and go, this is you say this, then I say it's
but you
completely...
see, it's not just this truth, it's all the truths. You have the vaxxers and anti-vaxxers, and there's enough information on both sides for them to go, look at my information, look at my information.
Yeah.
So
and they give them the name, like the anti-vaxxer, the climate change denier.
I have to say, I think, you need to be mindful that this is meant to keep people squabbling. And actually we're supposed to be...
So we're playing the systems game. We are being that agent of control.
You all are. You're all shills. All of you.
Yeah, we're all kind of creating that. We're all creating that reality. And that's why, I know that as my sort of way onwards from this journey, and is to confront face to face, man to man, these noisy contributors to the debate as my way onward. Not that I want to continue doing that, and in 5 years' time, I'm whoever the sort of high profile baller is, be calling them. That's not the example that I even want to continue. But I do need to be willing to demonstrate the courage and of my conviction to say, I'll meet you. But this business of doing it on these online fora in which people can be complete dickheads, is not acceptable. It's not acceptable. It is not a good man who behaves
Well,
in
it's
this
very
way.
low vibrational anyway. And
Not a good man.
that's
And you need to think about who you are and what kind of man you want to be and who you want to represent to your children, to your family, the kind of man that you are. And I may have taken my family along a route that has meant that materially we have very little. But spiritually, the man that I want to represent to my children and my wife is one who is conscientious, who is honorable, and so on. And so, I am of this world, and I have been, like all of you, conditioned to go to war. And obviously, in my case, literally gone to war. But that's exactly what we've been programmed for and exactly what we should be working to be not.
And our intention should be to work towards loving.
Yeah.
Because
loving, peace,
we are
harmony. I don't need to tell you
beings.
how to be and what to think.
No. Well, again, it comes back to you're all on your own soul path, and you have to.
But for me, all of these deceptions that exist around us, the only purpose of knowing that and why it matters is simply because you will never do the work on yourself. You will never seek to trust yourself while you continue to give your authority to deceivers. While you continue to give your authority to deceivers,
well, I take it a step further than that. Actually, when you continue to give your authority to something outside of you, to the physical reality, because where the soul needs to be is connected to source, connected to your intuition, connected to something way more spiritual, and that's where your sovereignty is. It's not in this external reality that we have attached ourselves to or been programmed to attach ourselves to. It's something way more spiritual and inward, and that's where you learn to trust, that's where you learn to love, that's where you learn to
that's powerful.
To connect.
That's powerful, and that's why it's worth going down this journey, and the Bible verse that comes to mind is that one about it's easier for a camel through the eye of a needle, a rich man heaven. And I think that it's not that we're talking about material wealth, we're talking about spiritual enrichment here, and
on that note, you have to go and work in the physical reality.
Yeah. I better just say goodbyes and hellos to Marcel Schornbecker. Hi, man. That's nice to see you. It's Astral here. Hi, Red Eye. How you going, mate? What a beautiful couple. Keep going forward. Much love from Martin. Thank you. Glad I called Munich. It was here. Hello, mate. It's nice to see you. Yeah, I hope you're well. Maori and Gracie. Very brave. Amanda knows the world is flat and he has a backing of globular macula. Yeah, well, I mean, as I say, I need to I need to do what I need to do, and the debates are toxic, Drew. Yeah, I think that I honestly I feel like I feel like I feel toxic in me when I'm in that squabble. It's a visceral kind of sensation.
It's a low vibrational thing. It's a low vibrational thing.
And we were all taught to go and play on the football pitch or whatever pitch to kind of choose a team and to fight me against them. And that's all friendly and fun and what have you. But now that same conditioning has been applied to the models of the earth, and visceral hatred of people who are going against one model versus another model.
And they very cleverly got us fighting against each other.
And so we've forgotten our shared humanity and our for me, our oneness. Is it wheat and tares like the Bible said? I'm not sure, I think that there is dark and light, yes, and the dark needs to know this as much as the light wants to know this. Maybe it's all meant to be a balance, but just for me, and I think probably for most of you, this idea that we need to be good, and seeking for the higher Eden, then this seems to me to be the purpose of why we've been given this realization now that our reality has been fabricated and is really little more than computer generated kind of hoaxery designed to constrain
But
us.
not everybody sees that. Not everybody sees that, and even our own families don't see that. So this is where compassion, forgiveness, and love unconditional love has to be given, and leave it be. Because otherwise it can become toxic. It can become low vibrational, where you're just spending your time trying to convince others of what you see. And I don't believe that is.
No, we need to come together.
Well used.
It's going to take me time to kind of.
It needs to be unity.
Really, embody that. But I think this is part of my journey, and I have to take this as part of my journey. And it almost forces my hand to say these things, to feel these things, because if I'm saying them, I need to be feeling them too, and I need to be living them too. And maybe Simon Dan offers me the opportunity, and him the opportunity, to kind of move through what is obviously quite a contentious, as Andrew says, low vibration kind of function.
When you call him Simon Dan, he's this character, but actually he's a man.
I think his name is Dan.
He's a man.
Dan.
He's a son. He's a brother. He's a father. He's a husband.
Yeah.
He's a whatever he is.
And he lives near Portsmouth, and I'm happy to go down there and meet him.
On a human level, just come and have a chat. Come and say hi. Even if you don't want to debate it, just say hi. Let's dispel this kind of animosity that needs to exist between.
She's right.
Between us. For me, it's I have to say it makes me sad. It's something that made me sad yesterday when I read some of the comments. I don't always read the comments on Dave's, because some people can be unkind. Some people can be so kind, and they are so lovely, and they mean so much. And then there's others that can be really ugly. Yeah. And let's just dispel that need for there to be this anger between us. We don't need to be angry with each other.
Yeah, and be open
and
to
we
don't really know
the
truth of this place
where
in
we are.
Tartaria and Mad Flags.
And you need to respectfully say goodbye, because it's
okay, guys. Well, look, I will obviously we've proven the concept. I will do more lives when I can from here, so I don't put them out in advance. Just, I guess, keep an eye out. I'm sorry you don't get notifications. If you don't get notifications, I know what YouTube's like, and they only send out patchy notifications. So it may be this kind of time of the day. Typically, with Alexander sort of needing my attention or using my phone, I can't always do it. I've got to go and do some work now. It's unpaid work. Our overheads are thankfully extremely low now because we're just paying for food, but we are kind of running low on funds. So if there's anyone there who's got a little bit of coinage that they can bung our way, that would be most gratefully received at PayPal, trinityfourman@gmail.com. And then I hope to do more of this and have more conversations and actually do a Q&A. Someone asked me earlier if I would do a Q&A session, and I'd love to do that. As I said, Russian Vids has got an outstanding invitation to meet with, have a thing with him. So maybe I can do that in the next week or two. I don't know. Let's see. And yeah, that's it for now. Thanks for being there, and yeah, if you're going through difficult times, my brother or sister, just hang in there, man. God love.
Or reach out to us, send us a message. We want to share.
Maybe I can help you out too.
Even if it's just that kind word that people have shared with us, reach out.
Yeah. We've had some of the darker days of our lives, and so we know how hard these journeys can be, this stepping out of this matrix or trying to reframe your world in this
Well,
truth. So,
recreate something different, and it does require us detaching from certain
yeah.
things.
So thanks very much for coming by. Please give us a thumbs up and share this video if that's your thing. Yeah, we are one. I mean, we gotta find a way to stop fighting, because that's what the man here wants. The system here wants that. Anyway, I gotta go.